23 minutes before 8 here on the program. The City of Johannesburg recently cut the water supply to the busy Gautrain station in Sandton. That was because owners of the property failed to pay 8 million rand in bills that are owed to the city. Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba says the city will not reconnect the water until it has received that payment. Well, we've got the mayor in studio with us to talk about this looming debt. Mayor, good to have you. Thanks for coming in to clarify this issue.
No, thank you very much for inviting me and discuss such a very embarrassing situation that has animated in our country.
Yeah. So let's get to the bottom of what's going on, the nitty-gritty. Cedar Park property owes the City of Johannesburg 8 million rand and has allegedly not been paying their bills since 2013. Cedar Park Properties, they own the Gautrain station, correct? So is that the fundamental story?
And Cedar Park it was a special vehicle started by Regiment Capital, which is a Gupta-linked company, to buy this property, but actually to receive the donation from the City of Johannesburg. It wasn't a sale of this property. It was a donation to them. You can imagine the most precious piece of land in the continent they're given to a private company, excluding them from paying for services, but the City of Johannesburg had to provide services. They then lease this property to everybody else, including getting rentals and getting payment for water that the city must supply from their tenants, but not paid over. I mean, it is just one of those absurd cases and embarrassing cases for the country, because Johannesburg represents South Africa.
So this has been going on since 2013.
Yeah, well, the transaction started in 2009. But now in 2013, the city actually then decided to register the bond against itself on behalf of Cedar Park. I've never heard of something like this. You'll think it's a movie. You buy a property from me, instead of you going to the bank to go and get the bond and then you pay me. The city registers a bond against itself, but transfers the property to you, and you say no, pay us as and when you've got money. Up to today, the city have not received a cent, including not actually paying for services. But unfortunately, this nonsense has to stop, and it is going to stop.
So just to go back to then, the mayor at the time was Parks Tower, is that correct?
That's right.
Have you been in touch with him? Has he responded to this?
Well, he's not responded. I think what responded was the provincial government, and I'm actually still shocked up to today, where the province actually wants to even go to extent of taking us to court to reconnect the water. I don't know how the province gets involved in this, when the province should really be working with us as a city to say that Cedar Park must pay. In fact, the Gauteng provincial government wants to take us to court, that we must reconnect. And I'm saying, go ahead, we'll see you in court. And I'm confident that they will waste our time, they will waste public monies, because they will lose the case with cost. Because if they take us to court on a matter like this, then they will be responsible for our cost. So I'm happy for the province. We'll see them in an open court of law to explain why they would want us to provide services to a private company for free.
How did you come across this? I mean, how did you eventually find out? Because if it's been going on since 2013...
Well, I'm sure you remember very well, in January of 2018, I personally launched a project called Project Buyamtetwa, where I identified over 2,000 customers in the City of Johannesburg who were removed from our system, not really receiving services. And we've been intensifying this project. I mean, I think by early this year, we had already recovered 1.5 billion rands from these illegal activities. So obviously, the City of Johannesburg was the state capital of the country. It was a free-for-all. Yeah, and I really urge our residents who have been approached over the last 5-10 years, who have been approached by officials of the City of Johannesburg to connect them to our services without paying, to really come forward, because we are going to catch them. We are doing a massive audit through our development planning and finance, and really doing an aerial site investigation. So we're picking up all this, and we are, within the next 2 years, we'll make sure that everyone in the City of Johannesburg who can afford to pay will pay, so that all our desperate people, because if you look at the levels of inequality and poverty in our country, high unemployment, and people who can afford to pay, they actually the big looters of our limited resources, including stealing our land, and the most precious land. And people will complain about someone who's desperate with a family who did not work for the last 10 years. They invade land and they expect us, we must deal with it, when the big companies with big politicians are the ones responsible behind actually stealing the prime land in our city.
So my concern is, obviously, you're not moving on this issue. You will not reconnect
I will
the water.
not.
So, but do you,
until if I get
until you get the money.
If I get the
money, do you
money,
think you'll get this money? Because I'm now seeing that the company has or is applying for business rescue. It's going to be liquidated. Do you think you'll get this money?
Well, I think fortunate enough, the bond is registered in the city's name, but unfortunately, I don't understand how they transfer this piece of land has been transferred to Cedar Properties. So my lawyers are working around the clock to interdict this business rescue, and so that we can cancel this bond and take back our land, and the land can then belong to the people of Johannesburg or South Africa.
Yeah.
And then everybody else, Bombela and everybody else, can then lease and pay for the services. We cannot allow our land to be stolen by criminal syndicates working with the senior government officials.
So just another issue is the forensic investigation into that irregular sale that you've been talking about. So this was you've called for this into the sale of the land.
Well, yeah, they already. That's why we've now in possession of all of these
documents bond, and the bonds and all of that. So this is what's been found. The
city registered the bond against itself. We've never. I mean, I tell you something like this, you would think it's the Mashaba, you must be dreaming. Fortunately enough, we're in possession of these documents, and I think the legal team, I'm sure as I'm sitting with you right now, they must be working around the clock to see how quickly we can reverse this illegal transaction. Yeah. Because any piece of land of the city must go through council. This particular one, we have to obviously investigate how the previous administration managed with the Guptas to work on this. You remember the case of the sinking fund where 280 million rands was loaned to Dinel without any guarantees, and Dinel was unable to really come out with the money until the national government had to come to the party, and your taxes had to actually bail out Dinel. And fortunate enough, as a city, we got our money. So you can see this link of the Cedar Park regiment, and there was a company called Molelwane Consulting, owned by Jeff Makubu, who was the MMC of finance, who started this company specifically to manage the relationship between the City of Johannesburg and Regiment Capital. And he was being paid 10% of any amounts made by Regiment against the city. And what we've got in our position, he has made himself just over 30 million rands, at least what we have
what
positioned.
You know of. Just very quickly before we wrap the interview, Mayor, the property that you say, where the Gautrain station is, what would you say that property is valued at?
Well, we're in possession of Cedar Park, actually tried earlier on to register the bond with the bank for just over 4 billion rands.
4 billion rand?
Yeah, for the property that was donated to them with supposedly 280 million rands. But we're in position of them trying to get funding from the bank, valuing that property for over 4 billion.
So that 8 million rand, that's just for services?
No, the 8 million is just for services.
Because
that
I mean, obviously that is, they owe you far more than that.
Well, basically, if you really look at this piece of land, they owe us, if they say let to go through, they owe us that piece of land. They themselves tried to raise a bond with the bank valuing that piece of land for 4 billion rands. So that is why I think my instructions to the lawyers on behalf of people of South Africa and on behalf of our poor people, we need our land back. And that land is supposed, we've not done the valuation ourselves, but the 280 million rands at the time, that means it was still a donation. You can imagine if they had paid the 280 million rands, we would not have known. Yeah. They would really be dealing with the question of water only.
Absolutely.
And the mistake that they make, like all the criminals, you know, when you're a criminal, somewhere along the line you're going to make a mistake. And one of the things, obviously, I think they were under impression is that they were going to rule Johannesburg until Jesus comes. Because if Jesus did not land with the Gautrain on the 3rd of August 2016, this South Africa and the people of Johannesburg would not have known. Luckily, for some reason, they decided to insult Jesus Christ, and he decided to come with a Gautrain to come and give us this information.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
No, it's you know.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, Mayor. Thank you very, very much for this. So 20 days they've got to pay. Now, how long have we? Not 20 days. Two weeks.
They then take us to court to reconnect. And we said, no, we are not going to court. We went to court. We said to the court, we are happy to listen to their case. But these people are going into a business rescue. If they lose this case, we want our cost. So we agreed with the bank. We made a proposal to the bank that we want them to put down 1 million rands down before we hear their case. So that in the event that they lose, we don't want to really add their debt to us. Last week, they failed to come out with this 1 million rands before the matter can be heard. The court gave them 20 days. So we'll wait. But in the meantime, I think for me, the priority is to take back our country's land back from these criminal syndicates.
Mayor, thank you very much for talking to us. So that was Herman Mashaba, the Mayor of Johannesburg, talking to us about the decision to cut the water supply at the Gautrain station in Sandton.